What's up, everybody? Hope you guys are doing well. And I saw a post on X yesterday that I just knew I was going to have to talk about a little bit. It's from Ben B. Baldwin, longtime Seahawker on Twitter, now X. And this data isn't directly from him, of course. This is compiled from a couple of different websites, PFF, SIS, and ESPN. But he posted the chart, and when I saw this chart, I was like, I'm definitely going to have to talk about this because it's such an extreme data set. So what Ben B. Baldwin posted was a composite rating of pass protection for each offense in the NFL. So this is, first of all, it's trying, not necessarily going to get all the way there, but it is trying to capture the play of the offensive linemen, tight ends, and running backs who are pass protecting in isolation. So it's removing the factor of the quarterback not being able to handle pressure. It's removing how long the quarterback holds onto the ball. Now, that's not easy to do, but that's what these rankings are trying to do. They're trying to look at it and go, okay, forget the quarterback, forget the play call, forget how long the quarterback holds onto the ball. How is the offensive line performing? And let's pull up the chart here and take a look here. You can see that the teams you would kind of expect to be near the top are, you've got Buffalo, Minnesota, Miami, Kansas City, still up there, Green Bay. A lot of the top offensive lines are near the top of this list. You know, Cleveland, Philadelphia, Baltimore is a pretty good offensive line, so it makes sense. Now you're wondering where the Seahawks are. Well, you got to go all the way to the back of the list, and I mean the back of the list. Well, no, I don't, because there are the two New York teams are worse. The two New York teams are worse, and they're kind of in their own tier of garbage, but the Seahawks are bottom three in pass protection. So let's take a look here at the individual rankings that they're using to put this together. This is PFF grade for pass protection. Seattle is 43. The teams that are lower than that, there are a few teams that are lower than 43, but you have like the Giants at 0, Jets at 27, Patriots at 42, basically the same. The Steelers are lower at 23, Panthers are lower. 49ers are actually a little bit lower too, which should prove that these numbers are making a pretty good, honest effort to isolate the quarterback play, because obviously the Niners get by having their quarterback throw the ball quicker, which is what Purdy does. But you can see that the Niners are actually a little bit lower there. And that's those are the only teams. So PFF has us near the bottom. SIS, which is a blown block percentage. This is how often blocks are blown. Stumbled over that a little bit. We're 19. The teams lower than us are the Jets, the Giants, the Titans, and yeah, that's it. Everybody else is significantly higher than that, I think. And then you have ESPN's pass block win rate, where Seattle is 26. There are a handful of teams lower. Jets, Giants, Patriots, Carolina's a little bit lower, Cincinnati, New Orleans, but we're near the bottom in all of these areas. So the composite score is 30. 3-0. Again, there are exactly two teams lower, the Jets and the Giants. So earlier this year, before the season started, I was looking at, I think it was PFF, but it might have been ESPN. It might have been both. They were ranking positional groups by team, and Seattle's offensive line was ranked in the bottom 3, I think. And I said, there's no way that's going to be true if we're healthy. Well, we weren't healthy. I think that's obviously the main culprit here. The relative health of our offensive line. That's the one area of this team that I think has a valid excuse for performing poorly, because you lost Cross for about a month. You lost Lucas for 3 months. You basically lost him for the whole season, because now that he's back, you know he's not himself yet. Damian Lewis missed a little bit of time. Just a little bit, but he did miss a little bit of time. Evan Brown, he hasn't missed any time except for a little bit in one game, I believe, but he's been working through injuries. Phil Haynes has missed time. Anthony Bradford has been playing through an injury at various points. He's had to miss a little bit of time because of injuries. It's been a lot of stuff to deal with on that front. So part of this is just to understand that this is not reflective of what the starting Seahawks offensive line would do. We have probably one of the most injured offensive lines in the NFL right now. Not right now, but overall over the course of this season. You miss a month from your starting left tackle, and you're missing 3 months from your starting right tackle. Now, those two guys were pretty much the seat of our power when it came to having expectations. Because the Seahawks fans were looking at those two guys going like, man, they played pretty good as rookies. They should get better. And Cross has been better. It just took him a while to settle into being better. And I think Lucas would have been better in all likelihood if he had not gotten hurt. Now, maybe it's not going to be until next year. But point is, yeah, this is definitely a situation, the one situation on this team where I feel like you can say injuries ruined it. But I also want to use this to kind of highlight, again, I got to ask, like, why am I supposed to think Geno Smith is such a bad quarterback if this is what he's dealing with, if this is what he's working with? Like, I'm not seeing elite quarterback play from most of the other really bad offensive lines here. Like, the exception might be like the Niners. The Niners might be the one team in this, like, bottom, I even go so far as to say bottom 12, that is getting really good quarterback play from a lackluster offensive line, and theirs is still significantly better than ours. Like, the teams that we're with are getting some of the worst QB play in the league, and some of those teams have bad quarterbacks, but some of those teams also actually have had for at least parts of the season workable options, and even it's chicken or the egg, right? Is the quarterback bad because of the offensive line, or is the quarterback bad anyway and the offensive line is just a cherry on top? But these teams that are at the bottom, they're not really getting good quarterback play on any level. So why am I supposed to think that Geno Smith is the one to blame here when I'm looking at something like this? He is dealing with some of the worst pass protection in the NFL. He is dealing with pass protection on the level of the 5 worst offenses in football. You can actually see that they are the worst ranked team before the cliff, where things just become comically inept with the Jets and the Giants. So I would hope that people look at this and are willing to keep an open mind going into next season. Like, there have been some games this year where Geno Smith has overcome routine bad pass protection. There have been games this year where Geno Smith, like that Dallas game, has overcome pressure after pressure after pressure to still deliver and put up quality numbers and play a quality game to either win it or put the team in a position to win it. And for as much as Geno's pressure rate is higher than it was last year, I think his sack rate is still down. His sack rate is actually very respectable. So the big picture here is that Geno Smith seems to be overcoming a really bad pass protecting offensive line. And it's just very weird to me as a Seahawks fan, seeing all these Seahawks fans not willing to budge an inch on this issue when this fan base spent 5+ years of the Russell Wilson era blaming shortcomings on the offensive line. Russell would have bad games. Russell Wilson would have slow games. He would have issues. And Seahawks fans would pin it on, well, the offensive line doesn't protect him. So I don't know where that energy went, but straight up, this might be the worst pass protecting offensive line of the Pete Carroll era. This offensive line might be worse at protecting the quarterback than any offensive line that we ever put in front of Matt Hasselbeck, Tavares Jackson, Charlie Whitehurst, Russell Wilson, and now Geno Smith. So I don't know what happened to that whole thing. Like we had wars, man. We as a fan base had wars over chicken or the egg between Wilson and the offensive line. But Geno Smith has a stronger and more compelling argument to blame his offensive line than Russ ever had. I do think that maybe the 2017 offensive line was a little bit worse than this one. That was the offensive line that got Tom Cable fired. But this is very close. Yeah, some of it is just injury related. I'm not necessarily blaming anybody. I don't blame Andy Dickerson for this. He's doing the best he can with what he has. We have no synergy up front. We've had no ability to depend on guys from week to week to stay healthy up front. Like, I look at all that and I go, I'm not pinning that on the coaches because of what they've had to deal with. But I am looking at this and going, what does this tell me about Geno Smith? Tells me he's overcoming a lot to deliver what he is delivering this year, which is still a relatively decent season. Not a good season. I'm not going to go that far, but decent football. And the thing that really blows my mind is that we as Seahawks fans spent how long talking about how bad the offensive lines were in front of Russell Wilson, and half the time the offensive lines that Russell had were significantly better than this one, and some of those offensive lines were not bad. The 2020 offensive line was pretty good. Some of those offensive lines that he had in the first couple years of Schottenheimer, they were flawed. They had problems, but they were workable. And early in the Tom Cable era, before Tom Cable completely lost his mojo, there were some good offensive lines there. Like, this offensive line has an argument to being the worst that Pete Carroll has ever overseen. And yes, I know he's not an offensive guy, but you know what I mean. The worst offensive line we've had with Pete Carroll being here. So, food for thought. Next year, hopefully, we can get a healthy season from Cross and Lucas. We're getting a new left guard in here that hopefully will be better than what D-Lou has been this year. Maybe moving on to Anthony Bradford, maybe a new center, maybe it's Oluwatimi. If those guys can provide a non-trivial upgrade over what we were getting out of the guys we have this year, don't you think the results could be better? Seems to me. All right. See you guys later. Go Hawks. Let me know what you think.